So, with Patreon, a lot of us are able to use that to either, create exclusive, I guess you could say web pages, sites for people to help support us on if they choose to, with certain financial tiers to them. And sometimes we go to Patreon to support others that are doing the same thing. Sometimes most of these people use Patreon because they like to not only make a little extra cash on the side, but put some of their best work, in my opinion, on there before they share it with the public. And of course, I've supported a lot of people on Patreon over the past several years. One of them, I think I just recently been back to supporting, is Nexstar. That's Nexstar. I think that's who it is. I'll provide the name in the description, or at least a link to the Patreon so you guys can check it out. And of course, they are one of those folks that enjoys doing webcomics, 3D stories, SFMs, whatever you want to call them, based on shapeshifting. Mostly shapeshifting, as of right now, that basically consist of, changing from being yourself to another person. Whether it's male to male, female to female, female to male, or male to female, and so on. I don't think they've dabbled yet. I don't think they've dabbled, on anything else outside of that. I mean, if they have, I don't know. Because I do know that with some of the typical shape-shifting stories that I've read throughout the past couple of years on Patreon, from Trouble TRO to Joven 16, whether the stories they've done on their own or stories they've collabed with people on, like, both of them, well, mostly Trouble TRO, has collabed with MrInternetMan, on certain stories. And sometimes, if not most times, those stories, whether it involves a character of MrInternetMan's or not, will result in the characters going kind of gooey, kind of melty, gooey, slimy, and all that. So, I don't know if Nexstar has gone that route yet. I'll have to keep looking. But there are signs, out there in these comics to where it feels like they're going to go in that direction. Sometimes they'll wait into at least the follow-up comic, if they do a follow-up, a sequel, if you will, to probably go in that direction. And it looks like with one of the newest collabs that Nexstar is doing with MrInternetMan is possibly leading us in that direction. That story, of course, is basically Unconventional 2. It's a follow-up to another shapeshifter story they did called Unconventional, where MrInternetMan, I think, kind of helped out a little bit, but not much. It was mostly Nexstar, but it did involve MrInternetMan's character, with his approval, showing up towards the end, and that's when InternetMan comes in to help basically contribute, script-wise, I should say, contribute script-wise to the story. And obviously, you see there are signs there. There are definitely signs there with his character, being involved. I mean, there's even a moment in one of the more recent chapters, if you will, on one of the more recent pages of it that came out today, where one of the characters involved says she feels like she's going to melt. And when I see that, when I read that, and I know MrInternetMan is involved, that does tell me that eventually we might be heading that direction. Even if the two characters from Nexstar, his own characters, in the story are possessed by MrInternetMan's character, Demonica, who has the power to possess two bodies at once. And let's not forget, Demonica is the mischievous elf alter ego of Veronica, who was given mysteriously a box of Nightshade lipstick that allowed her to become Demonica. A being that can shapeshift into whoever or whatever she wanted, even melt down into a liquid puddle of goop and be like that for a while. So I'm not going to put it past, something like that to happen in the Unconventional 2 story. I'm also not going to put it past the fact that another story he's working on with Trouble TRO, Science Experiment, which I think is in its 12th part right now and really starting to get going, starting to show its legs and everything, I would not be surprised if we head in that direction as well. And the reason I say that is because of the fact that in the previous couple of weeks, we've had the two ladies shapeshift into younger versions, because yes, they were a little older, so they were able to shapeshift into other versions, younger versions of who they are, but completely different, just be different people. And now they're entering into fantasy territory by becoming ladies of their dreams, or ladies of their fantasies and stuff like that, of fiction. And what that tells me, again, with Mr. Internet Man involved, I am not going to put anything by him when it comes to the story that he's writing or co-writing with his collaborators like Trouble TRO. So I would not put it past Mr. Internet Man in the science experiment story to eventually have these girls go gooey. And I think everybody else expects that too. I mean, I'm not the only one. I looked on the comment section of one of the parts that was released about a couple of weeks ago, and even they, pointed out that, the scene that was uploaded a couple of weeks ago would have been the most opportune time, I guess you could say, for one of the girls that, got these powers to go slimy and gooey and literally go right into the other girl, if you will, kind of like we see with Pink Benefits. Kind of like what we see with Pink Benefits. And you can tell in a way that when it comes to the Pink Benefits series, you can tell in a way that Trouble TRO is influenced by Mr. Internet Man, because they have simultaneously in two different areas within the same continuity of the story, you have our two main female protagonist shapeshifters going all gooey and everything and entering the bodies of other people, becoming part of them, if you will. And even if it's temporary. And, and again, I look at things like that, and it would not surprise me if the collab between Trouble TRO and Mr. Internet Man goes in this direction, or this collab with Nexstat and Trouble TRO, not Trouble TRO, but Nexstat and Mr. Internet Man goes in that direction eventually too, with Unconventional too. And now we also have Joven16, who's doing the Emerald Powers webcomic, SFM 3D webcomic, and I would not put it past them to go the gooey route with their character there as well, because that character has the ability to shapeshift into whoever, whatever she wants, and I would not be surprised if they do that. I wouldn't be. So I do expect it to happen. It's just a matter of when and where. I mean, I go back to the epilogue sequel of Bedlam's Revenge 2 of Ancient Pink, another collab between Trouble TRO and Mr. Internet Man. And the first thing we saw was basically Betty in a vampirist-like form lying down with a gooey black tentacle going down her throat. And the moment I saw that, knowing exactly who that could be, I had a feeling we were headed in that direction. And although it took time, several weeks, if not a month or so, we eventually did, or a couple months I should say, we eventually did get to that moment. So to say, so to say that basically, the authors, the co-authors, the co-writers, of these stories, or basically the people doing it on their own, to say that they are not going to be heading in that direction with some of the hints and vibes they're giving off, even in previous stories, would be an understatement. It really would be. So all I'm saying to anybody that is supportive of Joven16 right now, anybody that is supportive of Trouble TRO, anybody that is supportive of Nexstar, if you will, over on Patreon and the shape-shifting stories, especially those that are collabing with Mr. Internet Man, all I'm saying is this. In closing, all I'm saying is this. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised. If, and I mean if, we get to a part of the stories, whether they're the current stories they're working on or future sequels that they're working on, do not be surprised when we get to those parts of the story that the characters that are our main shape-shifting protagonists, if you will, end up becoming gooey, puddle, slimy shapeshifters, if you will. In other words, don't be surprised if they decide to go gooey and slimy and melt down into puddles, with the possibility of a fusion or something like that happening at the end. Do not be surprised by that. Do not be surprised. Because I could tell you one thing. When we got to the end of the Amber and Nicole one, and the fact that they kind of went gooey, tentacle, and all that, basically with Nicole, I think that's who it was, flowing over Amber, and thus causing them to merge together and become an individual sorceress, which then both allowed the thoughts and minds to become one in this new body. To me, if that's not an indication that, I wouldn't put it past, Trouble, Joven, Nexstat, to go in that direction of melty, gooey, puddleless, slimy girlness with a possible fusion at the end. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say, because I would not put it past them. Especially, ladies and gentlemen, if they're collabing with people like MrInternetMan. That's all I'm saying. So, in the end, I know I almost lost my train of thought there for a second, because I was trying to think about what I was going to say. You do these things unscripted and on the fly. That's what happens. More el natural. But anyway, like I was saying, in closing, I would not be surprised if we end up seeing that. And I think, because I will send this, to the to those people that I'm, Patreoning and subscribe to, I would not be surprised if we end up in that direction very soon with these stories. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I don't think I am. I don't think I will be, and I think they know it. I think Trouble knows it. I think Joven 16 knows it. I think Nexstat knows it. And mostly, I know MrInternetMan knows it. They all know it, and I would not put it past them to go in that direction. And that's a fact. That is a fact. But again, for those of you here on YouTube and also listening to various audio podcast locations except for Pandora on BW Rose's discussions, let me know what your thoughts are. For those of you that are supportive of them, let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think we'll be heading in that direction real soon? When do you think it'll happen? Let me know. Because like I said, when it came to Bedlam's Revenge 2, it took a couple months, but we did finally get to that moment. And it was mostly like towards the end. So you think they're going to wait to the end? Do you think they'll do it in the middle? What are your thoughts? And who do you think will be most likely to do it first? Do you think Unconventional 2 will? Because it has, MrInternetMan's character, Demonica Veronica, possessing both bodies, simultaneously. Do you think it will happen in Emerald Powers? Do you think it'll happen in the collab with Trouble TRO and MrInternetMan with, when it comes to Science Experiment? What are your thoughts? Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video, and until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.